there are people who were always going to figure things out, right? But there's people who you need to give the opportunity to figure things out.
Exactly.
Right?
I don't know why this question makes me so happy, but anyway.
Okay. Wow.
He dropped out of med
med
school because he wanted to do something else.
I spent a good amount of time just working with MIT admissions and really just speaking to like admissions officers as well. Do they just go to schools and ask, okay, give us your top 3, give us your top, oh yeah?
I don't know what they do in other schools, but in my school, that's what they did.
Cool.
If it's not good enough to get me in the top 10,
Yeah.
what really sets me apart
Yeah.
as a person? Because it's not like everything you're gonna do, you're gonna like, but at least you're gonna learn something.
If you don't try, you learn that you don't like it.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
This is what I wrote in my MIT essay.
Yes.
And I guess you asked, how...
Every MIT student you speak to, it's a weird trap because it's almost like that's what got us here.
But no one is gonna come and knock on your door and say, hey, do you need help?
Confession number 70,963.
Burnout is real. I want to leave this major. I'm not happy. I literally had someone call mental health services for me. If God placed me in this place that I am at this time in my life.
Nesu Connect.
Your perspective on how you got into MIT. No one knows, right? But we're here. It's like...
Yeah, like, I feel like I don't know, but I feel like, I have a sense of, I think this is something that, especially after getting here, I'm like, maybe they saw this and they were like, that's great.
No, I love that. And that's exactly what... Because then that's all we can get. I'm pretty sure after they admit us, like, there's no more record of any of the discussions
But like,
they had.
that's like, that's MIT and other schools though. Like, some other schools, low-key, will kind of give you hints of things. Because when you get...
Explain.
Like, I don't know how many schools you apply to.
So, that's a good question, actually. I applied to every Ivy League. So, basically, here's what it looked like for me. Right? Coming from Zim, a school in America is expensive.
Yep.
That's just how it is. So, I found... And it took so long to find this website. Initially, I was trying to make my own list. But just of schools that actually give tuition to international students.
Yeah.
So funny enough, so then from that list, I then like made a short list based on like schools I was interested in and schools that were maybe in surrounding areas.
Yeah.
So Wellesley was on my list, right? Just because it was just on that list.
Yeah.
And then only then I found out like, okay, that's an all-girls school. So this was part of that process, right? It's like you're still looking at schools, you're still trying to see what schools will give you like financial aid, especially as an international person. So from there, it turns out most of those schools, it was okay. They were like small niche schools. One school I applied to was Drexel, which I got to see now in winter break when I was visiting my aunt, at least that area in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So I got accepted, but the amount of tuition they gave wasn't much.
Yeah.
Right? And so coming from there, it's like you realize it's only these much larger schools that can afford to really give you what you might need. And most of that list was the Ivy Leagues, MIT, Caltech, right? Georgia Tech might have been in there, I think so as well. So just the big schools and Ivy Leagues. I applied to those, didn't get in anywhere except MIT. Crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I think that's not particularly true though.
Okay,
like,
tell me more.
Because I applied to like MIT, Harvard. My dream school was actually Stanford, but I didn't apply because
Honestly?
I looked at the essays. I was like, because I was recycling all my essays, and I was like, I'm not sitting down and writing more. By Stanford, it's done.
No, for me, I was at a point, right, where my only problem with Stanford was that it just seemed to be so secluded and that I would just be, they call it the Stanford bubble or something, right? And it would be cool to actually speak to people who've had that experience firsthand. But it's like, for me, it was always like, okay, MIT, my only beef with it is the cold, but it's been my dream school from like an early age. Versus the idea of California has always been fun to me as well, right? So that's what I was weighing. If I got into Stanford, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I would have, like, I don't know what decision I would have made, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like, I feel like it's easy to say that now.
Right.
But like in the moment, it would have been a really like difficult decision to make. For me, it was like, what I was talking about, what I was saying, I think is not particularly true. Is there are a lot of like smaller schools that like provide 100% because I applied to Amidst.
Okay.
I applied
Amidst
to
College, yeah.
Yeah.
And they give international students.
I applied to something else.
Interesting.
Wait. It's in the area. It's like near Amidst. It's like
So
there used to be one school in
Amidst
Spring.
College. I got friends at Wentworth, Bentley. Bentley's a little further out, I think. Simmons.
Williams College.
Williams is here? I've heard of it, but I'm not. I didn't
They're
know
all
where
in
that
MA.
was. Cool.
And I was laughing at myself because I think I had like 5 schools in Massachusetts on my list.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Did you apply to Tufts?
No.
Because Tufts I know is also good, but I don't know if they were on my list of schools that would give international students. But as you're saying now, even that list wasn't comprehensive.
Yeah.
Which I think it would be cool to make that list.
Yeah.
Right? And just like have that available for people to know.
For me, I think it was like I wanted to either get into like a STEM powerhouse
Yes.
or get into a liberal arts college.
Cool.
Because the thing with me is, and this has been a conflict throughout my life, I like too many things. And don't say too many is a bad thing.
I'm gonna say something. And we'll get to this now. And listen, we've not even started. I guess we've started the podcast now, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's a huge character of a lot of MIT students. Funny enough, like Black Students Union tries to have the alumni come through every now and then, there's like, so there's that involvement.
Yeah.
And from conversations with alumni, they still carry out that mentality through the rest of their lives. They're just doing all sorts of different. It's very interesting.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. I like that because high school was another experience. Like, being in high school in Zimbabwe is difficult if you are that kind of person.
Interesting.
And, I mean, it depends what kind of school you're going to. But if you're going to a public school like me, it's a bit difficult.
Okay.
Because my teachers felt, not all of my teachers, but like some of my teachers felt I should just like, the only things I should be focusing on are like my classes and then like my science project. Because it makes sense for me to be doing a science project like as a science student, right?
Yes.
But I was part of the Junior Achievement in Zimbabwe. It's like an entrepreneurship club.
Okay.
Where you come up with
that's not organized by the school.
It's not organized by the school. It's an international thing, actually. But you start at the...
In Zim.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, not just in Zim. It's like an international thing.
So, but it's called Junior Achievement Zimbabwe.
Oh, okay. So the thing is... For example, I don't know if South Africa has one. Okay. But if South Africa has one, there'll be Junior Achievement South Africa, Zimbabwe, and then you go on, whoever wins in each country goes on to the international level. That's how it works.
I probably don't know about it. That's cool. Have you heard of Ellen Gray?
No.
So that's more of I would like to think it's similar. I know it's more of a like entrepreneurship and leadership focused program.
Okay.
I don't know much about it, but I've got friends and it just seems similar. But continue,
Yeah, so it was like... Initially, it was reserved because in Zimbabwe, you're like an art student, sciences, or like commercials, right?
Okay.
So this was reserved for students who were like doing commercial subjects.
I follow.
And at least in my school, that's how it was. And then this year, there was like a new teacher in practice and he was teaching commercial subjects and he was like, well, we need people who are seeing it from different things. We need people in the arts who like marketing. We need people in the sciences who are like thinking about our product. We need...
This was just a new teacher at the school, you're saying?
He was in practice. He was,
He essentially like, he had just been hired that year and he was trying to make that change.
He had just been hired and it was nice because there was that opening and there were interviews. Like he did it like very formal. In the past, it was just like everyone in the commercial class has an entrance unless they don't want to do it.
Okay.
And that's how it was. So now you actually went for interviews.
And in a way, so previously, let's say there was 100 people in that class. It would be 100 people who go on to do the thing?
Yeah, but like our school is kind of small for A level. So it was particularly like let's say like 11th grade equivalent.
Okay.
So that would be about 30 people from the structure of my school.
And it would be everyone.
It would be everyone, unless you don't want to. But a lot of people wanted to do it.
And then once he came, were there people who then couldn't do it based on that interview? It was now more selective or no?
Honestly, I never really asked him I don't know if he actually cut people out, but I think he wanted to pick people's brains and really know where they were in terms of like commitment. And maybe he did cut some people out. Okay. Because not everyone was part of it. But we did interview. And like initially, a lot of people in my class, went there, whatnot. But I ended up, like just like the preliminaries, right?
Yes.
I ended up, I think, being one of the few people from my class going on to the interview.
Cool.
And then I was able to be like the project director for the thing. it was really fun. For me, I thought, well, I'm thinking about the product, like, that's nice. And there's also this aspect of I get to interact with people in different classes, which is like really different from my everyday experience in school, right?
Cool.
But some of my teachers, they were just like, yeah, you need to drop that.
So now we're going back to how you're saying you were just the type of person who wanted to do a lot of different things, right? Okay.
And it wasn't just like this club, right? I like this club, yes. Also athletics. I really like running. But I think back then I didn't know that I liked running.
Okay.
I did it because...
This was, when you say back then, this is because you were speaking about A-levels. So this is towards the end of high school.
This is like 2019, towards the end of high school.
Cool.
I didn't know that I liked running like that.
Was sport big at the school at all or no?
The thing is, there were sports that were big and sports that weren't.
Yes.
Athletics is big by virtue of every school has to do it. Cool. And so if you have people who are willing and people who are talented, then it's big, events. Depending. Yes. So in my first year of your high school, and again, Zimbabwean high school is like 6 years, right? Yes. In my first year of high school, I was just going for athletics, for inter-house competitions. And then the person who was supposed to like do, I think it was like the 800 meters event, didn't show up. They just didn't show up, and they had been practicing for ages.
That's how it should go. I'm with you.
And then my best friend was like, oh, you should run.
You should go.
I was like, you know what, team spirit, I'm going to run. Because even if I'm last place, we're going to get points.
Right, you have to,
Then I think I was...
house, right?
Cool. I think I was second place.
Nice.
So automatically, I'm now on the team. To go forward and actually need to train.
Nice.
But back then...
How was that for you? The fact that now, obviously it was just fun, but now you need to train. Were you open to that? Did it? Yeah.
At that point, I think I was a different person. Okay. So just the idea of, I need to do something else outside of school. It's not like I didn't do things outside of classes.
Yes.
I was part of clubs. I was like part of quiz club, things like that. But like... I don't know. I think athletics for me was something that I wasn't ranking up there at that time.
Definitely.
So I was just like, nah, I'm going to run away.
Yeah.
I just ran away. I just like...
Oh, you decided not to do
disappeared. It. I didn't
even... Do you regret that at all? Okay, here's the other thing, right? As much as you might regret that, it's like, I always like to think it's like, if I ended up... So for me, I played basketball at my high school. I was decent. I think a lot of it was... I can be athletic and I can play well, but this idea of like people watching me, automatically, it just, you can't perform if that's like clouding up your brain. So that was definitely one of my challenges throughout high school. But that said, it was like, come my matric year, like finishing high school, that was COVID.
Yeah, that was COVID. I still can't believe we lived through that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. We're going to need 3 hours if we keep talking like this. But listen, so the year before that already, I played basketball during like maybe the first quarter, maybe second quarter. But then just like stopped, right? And just like, okay, decided let me focus on all this other stuff, which was cool because it gave me time to do the things which I would say helped me get into MIT. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like you can't always regret it, but like I know where you might.
That's true. And it's quite funny that you have that experience because I feel like my experience is the flip of that. I feel like what got me into MIT is that I was able to flip that mentality and like actually tap into like every side of me.
Yes.
Which is like pretty funny, right?
Definitely.
Because it's like the opposite of what you're describing.
While it's the opposite in that context, I'll say me stopping basketball wasn't necessarily to say like I have to do this to achieve these other things.
I think it was a commitment thing.
Yeah, it was more so when I stopped that, I still continued that curiosity that you had, right? It's not like I knew what I was gonna start doing.
Yeah.
That's the clarification I would make. But that's I'm with you. But bottom line, you regret it or not?
I regret it.
You do?
I regret it because like with the way that I like running right now.
Okay. Oh, so you currently run?
I mean, I just do that for fun during my free time.
That's good.
I'm taking a PE class that involves a lot of running.
Which one?
It's a boot camp, so it's like.
Oh, so it's different activities as well?
But running is always there.
Okay.
What day is it today? Is it Friday?
Today is Friday morning.
Okay,
Yes,
so on
yes,
Wednesday
yes.
I ran like a 1 mile thing in the class. That was like the first activity, and then we did all sorts of, that like a rope thingy.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
pretty fun class.
Okay, that's good. So funny enough, I'm trying to think when this was. Definitely towards the end of sophomore fall. For like a month, 2 months almost, I was running like a mile every day. Every day, just more of a challenge because I'm not a person who enjoys like running or cardio of any sorts. But I think overall, it definitely it helped me just this endurance, right? And just like this.
And the thing I think that a lot of people don't get is it's not even just like physical endurance.
Yes.
It's like mental endurance.
Running is more mental than
Running
it's physical.
is mental. When I started running, like, last 2 years of high school, it was like in my thoughts, whatever is happening is how my body is reacting.
Interesting. Tell me more about, like, what would you tell yourself?
So if like I'm getting tired and I just like succumb to that thought,
Yes.
I'm most definitely going to just like stop or
You'll start walking.
things like
but
that.
if you tell yourself that, great.
And I'm telling myself, and normally we trained as 2 people per event, and like I got to figure out, a lot of times we might think it's like you need a substitute or whatever.
Yes.
But for training, I think it's also because the idea of being a part of a team helps you like in your mentality. Because then you're like, you can't let the other person down. Like they are going well, and then you start getting tired.
That's
what are they
good.
thinking about what your body is?
That's good insight. Because here's the thing. I was about to say, even just how you're saying how it's more mental, that really applies to all the other work we do, right? It's like, it's not like going to class every morning is easy, right?
It's not easy.
But it's like if you can mentally tell yourself like, okay, this is what I need to do. But then I like to frame a lot of things in just the entrepreneurship space as well, right? So when you then mention the whole team thing, right? It's like when you're working with other people, it's like, oh, I can't let them down, right? Everyone kind of needs to push this. Which is, it's a good, that's cool.
So I don't know, I really value running, and I especially just value like partnership in terms of like in that space. You're doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for someone else. You're doing it for your school, and you can't let that person down. They can't let you down. So you both have to remain strong, and you have to get to the end. There are times when like even if you have all the strength and you see your partner is getting tired, sometimes you might have to like slow down a little for them to just kind of like push them to like pick up a bit, and then you continue together.
And you know what it does, right? It's like a lot of things I was speaking to. Oh, this is a whole other conversation. I was speaking to a friend. Let me not even start that. But we're speaking a lot about how a lot of things go both ways, and like you don't realize it. But when you slow down for that person, let's say we're running. In my mind, I know like, okay, Vivian can run, right? Now me slowing down is slowing her down. So now on my end, I must also push, right? It's not only are you doing something nice for me, but it's like I also then get internal motivation to say, like, let me push, which is
exactly. You get it.
No, listen, this was a good prelude. We haven't started the interview, but it's starting now. It's starting now.
It's starting now.
Okay, I guess we started it, but my name is Nesu Namo. I'm the host. This is Nesu Connect, and I am proud to present our first guest today. Thank you so much. Let's start off with the brief intro. Obviously, tell us a little bit more about who you are. And funny, this was an MIT prompt on the essays. Describe the world you come from.
Oh, yeah. I actually remember that. Well, my name is Vivian.
Awesome.
I'm a junior here at MIT. I used to be studying computer science and urban science and planning.
Nice.
Now I'm in business analytics. That's a whole other story.
So you're in course 15 now?
Yeah, I'm in course 15.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have one of those cool backpacks.
It's the North Face? Or which one did you get? Because there's a North Face backpack. Then I've seen a different one as well.
Which one is nicer? Because I haven't picked mine up, so I need to know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The North Face one is cool.
Okay.
Like North Face makes good backpacks, and then you get the Sloan.
Yeah.
And then I need to remember, if someone knows what the other backpack is, they should comment.
Yeah, they should comment. That's for sure. But the world that I come from. I'm from Zimbabwe. Yes. Born and raised.
Awesome.
I was going to say born and raised in Harare, but that's not true. I was actually born somewhere else. But
where were you born?
I was born in Zvishavane. It's like
I don't know where that is.
opposite side.
Of Harare.
Yeah. I would say like my geography is bad, so
Yes.
this might be a lie. But I would say it's more towards like Matabeleland side than it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's cool.
And then I was raised in Harare. I have 3 brothers, so I've always been the only girl.
Okay. 3 older brothers.
2 older brothers,
And
1
then
little
one-
brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the world that I come from. I think just like that essence of being the only girl child, right?
Okay.
And
Pressures. Describe it more.
No,
What do you mean by that essence? Yeah.
I don't feel like I think the experience is different for different people.
Yes.
But I don't think I ever really like had, pressure or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the way that we were raised, at least, it was like everyone does the same thing. Everyone cooks.
Okay.
Everyone does chores.
Okay. That's
Everyone
cool.
is expected to be studying or whatever you're
Yes.
supposed to be doing, right?
Would it necessarily be together, or it was more so like sometimes you're doing one thing and then someone else is doing something else?
It's either we're doing it together or we're splitting things up. We're like, okay, today you're doing that, I'm
Oh,
doing
and
that.
so you guys were a team that
And-
you just knew stuff had to be done.
And
That's
then
good.
we're rotating, right?
Cool.
But I think being raised like that, especially like in a society where when you start to grow, you start to see that at some point, like some girls are being left behind, right?
Explain what you mean by some girls being left behind.
A lot of times, like this is just like the pipeline.
Yes.
In Zimbabwe, you're going to school with like other people. At some point, you reach grade 7, you take the national exam.
Yes.
And there's some people, like some girls that won't even get to go to high school.
Because of performance on the national exam.
It could be performance. It could be like
Life circumstances.
life circumstances. It could be like getting pregnant.
Yes.
It's just like
Was that big in the, like, especially like teenage pregnancy? Would that have been a large problem in the area you came from, or just more so just speaking in general?
this is more so just like country overview. But in high school, like people getting pregnant, that
In
was
high school,
like
it was
pretty,
more frequent.
yeah,
as
that
well.
was more
Yes.
frequent even like in my school, right?
Okay.
But it's one of those things where if you get pregnant also, like you can't really go to school after that. I think there was a time when they changed that.
Okay.
But
oh,
then-
so there was a time where, because, my understanding, you get pregnant and then perhaps due to just societal pressures and even having to take care of the child, that stops you from going to school. But was there a time where they then just wouldn't allow you? Is that what you're...
I think so, yeah, because say you're in Form 3, right? You're not taking your national exam, so you have to be going with your belly to school every day.
Okay.
And they don't want that.
Why do you think that was?
I really don't know what it was. I don't know if
Like,
they thought that
It's
maybe
not
it
necessarily
would
a
like...
rationale, right? Or like... Because, I guess we might be thinking the same thing in the
Yeah.
sense of like maybe they're trying to avoid normalizing it.
Exactly. I feel like that was it.
That's hard.
But then now it's like they're probably 2 students. Like, there's the boy and then there's the girl who's involved, and the girl can
Yes.
go to school.
And then the guy
and the guy
continues.
continues.
You know, now that you mention it, very similar climate in South Africa. I mean, obviously, I was born in Zim as well.
Yeah.
Bulawayo boy.
City of Kings, continue.
Right. But so in SA, like the adults would often speak to us and be, or at least my parents as well, right? It's like just the understanding that like if you get a girl pregnant, at least from my parents' perspective, they'll obviously see me that like I need to take responsibility. That's like a no-brainer, right? But there was also just the being aware of the fact that like you almost end this person's career and you as a guy, you can just continue. Right?
Yeah.
It's like there's almost this unfairness that you should be aware of, right? Yeah, that's definitely, that's a big chat.
That's one thing. And I would say if you were like in a writing class, if you're taking a national exam,
Yes.
then you could still come take your exams, but you'd still need to, dress in uniform. It doesn't matter like how uncomfortable it is depending on how far along you are. At least this is how it was in my school. But yeah, it's just like those kinds of things, right? But yeah, going back to the question.
Yeah, it's the world you come from. Like, let's keep going. Yeah.
I guess what I was just going at with that is seeing those kinds of things and then growing up in a family where like there's similar consequences for actions, like for boys and girls. There's like equal distribution of like chores and things you have to do in your house. And then also my mom, she's just like one of those really like forward-minded people. I really like that. She's always
Lots of planning, right? It's potentially a Zim culture. I think, especially our parents, right? Their generation, for them to be in a good position, they had to work hard, right? And a lot of it came from planning. And yeah. So I get that.
Yeah. And she's a go-getter as well. Like
Nice.
she used to be a primary school teacher. At some point, when the economy was going down, she was like, she probably doesn't want to do this anymore, right? Okay. But like when you're that far along in your career, it's kind of difficult to like switch.
To just to take a different path.
I feel like in this part of the world, that's like an easier thing to do. I'm not saying it's like that easy, but like in comparison, I think like it's something at least you would hear people talking about, like switching your career path. No one really says that in Zimbabwe. Like from the point that you admitted to school, it's your path is like, you're sealing your path from like when you start A level and you're already a sciences or commercials and
that's where it's set. Do you think that should change? At least, especially in the context of like 2024, right? Like,
yeah, I think that should change.
Okay.
I think that like, I won't say that they shouldn't be a focus of like sciences, commercials or whatnot, because I think people sometimes just mix the subjects however they want to.
Cool.
But what I will say though, at least is I can't like apply, for example, to law school, right? Like, you can't expect me when I'm finishing high school, I need to know that I'm committing to law school and I'm going to finish until the end. Yeah. There's no possibility for me to switch in the middle. And depending on the subjects that I've already been doing, I might not even be able to qualify to go somewhere else.
You don't have the knowledge to become an engineer.
Even if I had the knowledge, I need to have the certification for me to be considered like someone who can actually start on that path.
Yes.
And so that's the challenge. I think that that should be more flexible so that like people get to explore and like get time to think and make switches before they leave college.
I agree. I'm going to be very brief especially because you have your meeting soon. We're doing okay for time. So I was blessed in the sense that, so in Zim, obviously like you're saying, with a lot of schools, it's like you'll take commerce and you have commerce subjects. Yeah. In South Africa, we've got some schools with that system as well, potentially a majority. But so the school I went to, there's Crawford College, which they rebranded to Crawford International. Okay. So in a way, it was always an international school, but in my mind, I wasn't going to an international school. You know what I'm saying? But obviously now they've rebranded and that's what it's called. But a big part of Crawford was you pick the classes you're going to take in a way. So there was the core that you needed, right? So English, we had something called life orientation, math, and then a second language, right? There was also an option if you didn't want to do like pure math literacy, if you weren't necessarily looking to go into like a math-focused field, right? So that's what we had. But then from there, you had 3 other subjects, but instead of having to say, I'm taking from a commerce set, you could just mix. So I could have accounting, I could have like a technical drawing class, which we called like engineering, graphics, and design, IT. And it could just be any mix of like those interests, which I think helps a lot of people just have that bandwidth, right? And just be able to do different things. That said, the system is like slightly different in the sense that like a lot of universities only care about the math and for us, the subject was physics, but it encompasses both physics and chemistry. But if you did well in math and physics and your other grades were decent, you could probably just do any program. There wasn't too much of that limitation of like this A-level system where you're focused on these subjects, right? That's how I'm understanding it.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
But when you were speaking, I just thought of this.
Yes.
I feel like the Zimbabwean system is a hierarchy. Because after the first 2 years, based on your grades...
So Form 4 and O-levels, right?
No. After like, you finish grade 7, right?
Okay.
And then you do Form 1 and Form 2.
Okay.
And that's like before O-level.
Form 1 and Form 2, right? So we're saying grade 9, grade 10.
Grade 8, grade 9.
Okay.
But think of Zimbabwe as going on to grade 13.
Okay.
So when you're in that stage, based on your grades, you're screened into your class. Sciences, arts, or commercials.
So 8 Oh, what? But that's what I don't like about that is you now say that this is one thing that's annoying me at the moment, right? That you think low grades, I'm already guessing that higher grades go sciences, slightly lower is going to be commerce, then the lowest is arts.
Exactly.
I watched the Cat Williams interview. Comedian, this guy left home 12 years old, 13 years old. But between the ages of like 8. Okay, I don't want to like misquote, right?
Yeah.
But this guy was reading thousands of books a year as a kid, right? So he was somewhat a prodigy. And this idea of like, there are geniuses, like a lot of the people who've made it great in art, they're smart. These are genius people. And it's like, as a country, you then think how much untapped potential has just like all these Zimbabwe, Africa in general, left on the table because we think your math and science is where you have to be. You know what I'm saying?
It gets worse.
Tell me more.
You screened, right? You screened, and there's already this hierarchy that you've pointed out.
Cool.
And then after that, I was in the sciences class.
Okay.
I can't speak for all schools, but this is at least how it was in my school.
Yes.
I was in the sciences class, and I also took accounting.
So this was in addition to.
So I have like my core, math, chemistry, physics, and whatnot. And I'm taking accounting as well.
Yes.
I'm taking French. I'm taking history, But the bottom line is I also have like that exposure to accounting.
Cool.
I could later on say, I don't really like sciences. I want to go into commercials.
And now remind me, because now you obviously are in sciences. You mentioned history. You mentioned French. And there's accounting, right? But this is only now after the screening. So Form 1, Form 2. So this is Form 3 and 4.
This is Form 3 and 4,
up until O levels.
And
That's
up
where you're
until
really
O levels.
exploring. I'm understanding. Okay.
But then, not all classes have the same options.
Explain
People
by
in the
options.
arts are not taking accounting.
They can't.
They could do it outside of class. They could like learn it from someone else and register
Yes.
for the subject.
Oh, but so essentially, when you're in sciences, stuff like accounting is within that bracket.
Yeah.
So you can only take classes below your bracket.
Yeah, pretty much. You get it? So it's like, for me, it was like a really just like painful thing because there were classmates of mine that I saw like they really like passionate. They want to explore. They want to take some of these classes in the sciences. And I have one particular classmate. Shout out to her. She's amazing. But anyways, she didn't get into the sciences class. But she wanted to like explore, right? She was in the commercials. She wanted to see, okay, what does it look like? Is it something she might want to do in the future?
Yes.
And she started taking classes outside of like school. She took chemistry, she took biology, and it's really hard to take those classes outside of school because it's like extra time. You already have your 9-10 subjects.
And outside of time, it's like financially, right? Unless obviously she potentially had to learn herself, but it's like now you must get textbooks, and then you potentially now have to like pay extra to get the tests, right?
Exactly. She did that, and she did well.
Okay.
Well enough for the school to take her in for A-levels in the sciences.
Oh,
now in A-levels, she was in my class. But think about it. If she hadn't done that on her own, she wouldn't have had that option. So I salute her for that. And I think a lot of other people have to have that option without needing to go outside.
Without having, it's like... This production was brought to you by a Voxel studio. Voxel Lab is housed in the Jamil Rapid Prototyping Room in MIT's Innovation Headquarters and is supported by MIT Music and Theatre Arts, Arts at MIT, and MIT's Office of Innovation. I'll see you next time. This might go in the middle of the podcast, so technically I won't see you next time. I'm going to see you right now. There are people who were always going to figure things out, right? But there's people who you need to give the opportunity to figure things out.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And it's not even just a high school thing. It goes on to the college thing that I was talking about.
Yes.
Like, I also need time to figure things out. You see how I've just, like, changed my major? Yes. I can say that freely here. If I was in Zimbabwe, whatever I started with, I had to finish.
Yes.
Whether I like it or not.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And then people are bitter in the workplace. People don't like their jobs. And I'm not saying that's the case for everyone. Yes. But for some people, it's just like it was this whole pipeline that led them to that point. They changed their mind at some point. They couldn't do anything about it. They had to continue.
Do you think... So it just had me thinking. And obviously, I've got questions. We'll just go in a mixed order.
Yeah.
Obviously, as I just mentioned, some people... We're kind of just going to figure it out and just have this drive and just, they do what they need to do. What role do you think role models and like people to look up to plays in that? And then naturally from there, who are some of your like role models and stuff? Yeah.
I don't know why this question makes me so happy, but anyways.
Okay, I'm glad. I don't know what you're about to say. I was like, I was about to try to convince you to answer the question, but if it makes you happy, keep going.
I think role models are really important. You know, like there's always going to be like someone in your field that could be a role model.
Yes.
But like, you know, maybe you want to switch fields like we were talking about. Knowing that there are people who've done that. Just like in the
Yes, that's
future,
big. That's
someone who
big.
wants to do that in the Zimbabwean education system, knowing that my
Right.
friend did that, it's comforting because it's not isolating. You don't feel like, oh, you know, you're trying this really hard thing, which
100%.
you could still do it, right? But knowing that some people have done it and they've succeeded on it, it's just like kind of encouraging, inspiring. It's not isolating.
100%.
You have someone on your path. And as to who my role model is, yeah, there's a man. His name is Knowledge Chikundi. He's
Okay.
a Zimbabwean. He's the founder of the Zimbabwe Science Fair.
Oh,
And-
that's cool. That's an interesting role model.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
He's my role model.
Yes.
I think he's done a lot of these things of like,
I just want to point out that his name is Knowledge.
yeah.
It just works.
It
Yeah.
just works. But he's really like crafted his own path.
Okay.
And I think that that's one thing that's been inspiring for me, but inspiring for other people.
Yes.
So the thing is, I might be saying some wrong things. I'm sorry, sir, if that's not correct, but
He's happy. He's your role model.
But I think
That's how it
initially
goes,
he
yeah.
started like with an interest in when he was in high school. I think he was doing commercials.
Okay.
Then A level, he wanted to do sciences, so he did it.
Okay. Oh, so when you say high school, you're mainly referring to that Form 1 to Form 4 period. And then he switched.
I just refer to all 6 years as high school,
That's
honestly.
valid.
Because the first 4 years are called secondary school.
Okay.
But like a school with all 6 years is called a high school.
A high school.
Yeah.
I follow. Perfect.
So in his first 4 years, like he was
Commerce.
doing the commercials, yeah. And then he switched, he did sciences, he did really well at it.
Okay.
It was hard because he hadn't done these things before. He did it. But that's not even what I'm talking
Cool.
about.
Yeah.
He went on to college. He did some chemistry. He was in med school. And in Zimbabwe, this guy dropped out.
Oh, wow.
He dropped out of med
med
school because he wanted to do something else. And what's that something else?
Wow, because it's what we're talking about in Zim, the pressure of that.
Exactly.
Right? Yes.
So I salute him for that. And like whenever I have to make hard choices, it took me a long time to change my major. Like I was scared, all sorts of things. But then when I think about things like that, I can do it.
Okay.
And so he started the Zimbabwe Science Fair. When he was in high school, in his last years, he was working on a project.
Cool.
I think it was something to do with like
Personal, not for school.
personal. I think it's something to do with like some cancer research. I'm not too sure.
Cool.
But in any case, he had a really good project. He had a lot of publicity. And then there was someone like, I don't know if you know the International Science and Engineering Fair.
International. I'm trying to see if I recognize the acronym. But
ISEF.
continue.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Yes.
But
Wait, it's by Intel.
yeah,
Intel
it used to
ISEF.
be by Intel and now it's by Regenerant. But yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah. So the person who won like the grand award that year had research that was low key, kind of
What
similar
he
to his, like
had.
same path, right? And he
Interesting.
was thinking he didn't have a platform to go on that gold stage.
Yes.
Not to say that he would have won or anything, but then he started out volunteering as a teacher. Like my school didn't have like enough science teachers. He was just volunteering to teach. He was my physics teacher
Yes.
throughout my career in
Oh,
high
it's-
school.
okay. That's cool. That's a good connection. Okay, nice.
So he started a club in my school called Start Science. He started a club in another primary school. He was doing all that kind of work. He built the Zimbabwe Science Fair. He built the Africa Science Baskets Festival. He's just been doing amazing things. And now Zimbabwe is on the world stage. Zimbabwe is at ISEF every single year.
Nice.
And there's a documentary right now I'm just pubbing. It's called Science Fair.
Yes.
And it's by Net Geo, if I'm not wrong. And
it's Africa focus. Like, tell me more about it.
It's ISEF focused. So they just like identified some
National
individuals.
Geographic is covering Intel ISAF.
Yeah. So they just like
It's not Intel. What is it again?
Regenerant.
Regeneron? What company is that?
Yeah, I would say wrong things if I try and if I try and say what it
That's
is.
very fair.
So you guys
We'll
will
find
would,
out. Yeah.
But the colors are pretty. There's orange and all sorts of things.
Nice.
Anyways.
Yes.
They just like identify some students
Yes.
and like follow those teams throughout ICF. get what they're thinking, go with them home, see them making their project and like what they're doing.
That's a good thing to have.
Yeah,
I like
one of like my colleagues was in Zimbabwe now. She also had a project and she was
part of the
she was part of that.
That's awesome.
So it's really amazing. But I'm saying all these things wouldn't have been able to happen
had he
at
not
least like at this pace
platform.
had he not created that platform. But what did it take for him to do it? He had to drop out of med
school in the country and with the pressure of like, you got to do this.
Exactly. And like he really encourages people to have massive transformative purposes.
Yes.
His is to spread science, enlightenment in Africa. I might have missed something in there, but that's the gist of it.
I like that.
And he's been doing that. And I think the Africa Science Baskets Festival continued to get bigger. Like right now, like I know South Africa and like some countries in like Southern Africa have been participating. But at some point, hopefully you'll become, like a science fair where like more countries are coming in. Like even like more like international countries coming to us, because a lot of times we're going to science fairs out of the continent.
Right, we need American kids to come do a science fair in
that has
Zimbabwe,
actually happened in the African Science Baskets Festival, but it's still small that we haven't like included all the Africans yet.
Yes.
But it's still like growing, and I'm just happy to see that.
I actually like what you just mentioned, right? It's like, so with African Students Association, Eddie, shout out Eddie Agola. He's been doing an incredible job this past spring, past fall. But the focus, obviously, he's leading the African Leadership Circle here at MIT. And a lot of it has been speaking on this like entrepreneurial path of like, how do we build an African utopia? And I just had this thought now of like, sure, it's great. And the goal will be to have kids from all over the world come and do science fairs in Africa. But even just having a science fair with kids from every country in Africa, right? And like we bring them. That'll be cool. That'll be very cool.
So, yeah, he's my role model for a lot of reasons. But I know that a lot of things that I've done without his platform, without the things that, like, he's sacrificed to, like, see this vision come to life, I wouldn't be able to be here, and I can say that with confidence.
No, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And I think it's inspiring to have these role models who've had to make some of these difficult decisions, right? That said, it's like, naturally, we're not advocating dropping out of school.
We're not doing that.
But it's like that perspective that you just do what you need to do, right? And like what your priorities are and all of that.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's great, because you managed to tie the role model question back into like the world you come from. Like it's very cool that he got to teach you as well. Having that firsthand experience, which I guess this is a good way to jump into what a lot of the subscribers have actually been asking. Just like, people want to know, how do you get into MIT? And I spent a good amount of time just working with MIT admissions and really just speaking to like admissions offices as well. And the biggest thing they say is like, no one knows. And it was funny, like this was a quote, I'll paraphrase, but he said, they'll watch these YouTube videos, right? And be like, oh, sometimes we watch videos and kids say like, oh, I got into MIT because, and then they will laugh because that is not why you got into MIT, right? But it's still nice for people to hear from your perspective. What do you think, once again, from the world you come from and the things that you did that you think made that difference?
I mean, I did a number of things, like I said, just because like later on, like towards the end of high school, I was just like, actually, they decided, let me just tell the story.
Yes, please.
What happened is there's this scholarship program.
Okay.
Like if you're doing really well academically, they'll approach you, and there's kind of a training program for a year or two.
Where do they find out about you? Do they just go to schools and ask, okay, give us your top 3, give us your top... Oh, yeah?
I don't know what they do in other schools, but in my school, that's what they did.
Cool.
And so that's how me and one of my friends, we went there. And, I was so excited because then if you do well on your national, like, O-level exams, and then also, like, you do well in all their tests, you get to go to, like, private schools in, like, the top private schools in the country.
Okay.
So I was so excited. I was counting my chickens. I was like, yeah, this is happening, right?
Yes.
But I went through the entire process. I think I was shortlisted into, like, top 40, and then we did some more interviews or whatever, and like 10 people ultimately get in
From that top 40.
to different like schools.
That show, like, my dad always tells me this, right? In the sense that, like, look, as much as I might have the perspective that, like, oh, my grades aren't going to be a reflection of how smart I am and my capacity, right? Your grades are the only way for these people to tell and to separate. It's like life is competition. It's one of those realities you just got to grasp with and, like, push through competition. Right?
Yeah.
But continue. Yeah, that's crazy.
So it happened that way, and then I actually didn't get it.
Okay. So you got the top 40 and then not the top 10.
Not the top 10. And it was like a lot of like academic actual tests, and then some IQ tests, some like, building, nice stuff, whatever. But I didn't get it. That's the bottom line.
Yes.
I was crushed.
I understand.
Because I went back home.
And this is, so this is for a high school scholarship. So remind me, you said this is before O-levels?
This is like...
At O-levels.
This is at O-levels.
To get to
A-level scholarships.
Your next 2 years. Cool.
And now I'm thinking, my whole life, I've thought, okay, I do well in my academics, and that's something, right? That I think, okay, this is a talent, I'm grateful for it, and it's gotten me places.
Yes.
But now I'm sitting and I'm thinking, if it's not good enough to get me in the top 10, right?
Yeah.
What really sets me apart as a person? Because all along I've kind of been thinking, okay, this is it. But like, I recognize there's all these smart people in the country, and what sets me apart, because I don't want to be just like the kid who's getting good grades anymore. I don't want to feel this kind of thing ever again. I don't want to hold on to this one thing. This is what I was thinking.
That's a formative, that's a good story.
And again, like Nesu said, I'm not saying not to care about your grades. Right. But like, this is what I was thinking. So I went back to my school, A-level. And I think like I strongly believe that this is the path that God had in mind, because I feel that if I had gone to a different school and not gone back to my school, a lot of the projects I ended up doing, because I actually started doing science fair stuff in A-level. Okay. I wouldn't have managed to do a lot of those things, or to really thrive in that environment where, at times I didn't have the teachers I needed, but I needed to like rise above those things. Yes. I learned a lot in A-level, so.
Was knowledge there before your O-levels?
He was still running the science fair, but I was still like running on my,
stuff.
I was running on my academics. I was like, that's amazing
stuff. So then you
stuff.
had the opportunity to really...
I was like, that's amazing stuff. Like, I mean, I still like really loved him. He was a great teacher. He always encouraged, because he did like a fellowship here at MIT. Yes. And he always encouraged like experiential learning, And so I was always inspired by him, and I thought, I wanna be more practical. I wanna go beyond these theoretical things, but I never really did anything, right? Yes. Now I'm thinking, what do I really want to do? And that's when I decided I just want to explore things and find out, like, who am I? What do I like? What do I not like?
Yes. Yes.
And it's a good time to find out, right? It's not like everything you're going to do, you're going to like. But at least you're going to learn something.
If you don't try, you learn that you don't like it.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's cool. So, I mean, naturally, like, it's awesome you finally had... Let me not say you finally had. You now have this opportunity to intentionally figure out what separates you, right? What did you find out?
I was going to ask you. I was going to say, are you going to ask me what separates me?
Don't worry. I mean, I'm new at this, but honestly, it's like, now I get to share a little more context as well. During the summer, so I had the opportunity to intern at Apple, spend some time in the Bay Area. One thing I'll definitely say about Apple, the people who work there have there's a lot of substance and depth, at least just conversation, right? Like, you can have great conversations all day. I was fortunate enough that they had intern housing, so I chose the corporate housing option. I was just surrounded by a bunch of interns and had the opportunity to speak to a lot of them. And as much as I realized, like, okay, I'm good, I can just have conversations, a lot of them told me, like, oh, snap, like, you're awesome to just talk to. So from there, I then realized, like, okay, I guess this is a skill I can just, like, try to nurture and, like, try to do this podcast thing. And now this is where we are, pretty much. But yeah, I'd love to thank you. I'd love to definitely hear a lot more about what you then found out in those last years.
I won't say much just in respect of time. But
We're doing good.
we're doing good. I will say that's actually a really difficult question, but for me, and this is what I wrote in my MIT essay.
Yes.
And I guess you asked, how do I think I got into MIT? And I think this was my answer to that question.
Definitely.
What I think is the essence of me is even just that I have so many things that I care about.
Okay.
I think owning that and understanding that regardless of, what the environment that I grew up in dictates, regardless of that,
yes,
I value all these things and I'm able to exist in all of those spaces.
That's very good.
I'm okay with that.
Yes. I like how you're saying, one thing you mentioned, you're saying regardless of the environment you're in, but more importantly, outside of even just, okay, this is part of the environment. It's regardless of people telling you, you should only focus on this.
Exactly.
And people telling you, you can only do this much. And people,
That's exactly what I meant by environment, because I was thinking back to actually having a meeting with the teacher and being like, you should probably not be doing all this stuff. And me being like, I'm probably gonna do all that stuff.
Right.
But
It's the trap. It's interesting, right? So I think every MIT student you speak to, I mean, exceptions exist in every case, but I feel like I can generally say this, will have this experience of being an MIT freshman and trying to do everything and realizing that this isn't going to work, I need to adjust.
Yeah, exactly.
But now that I'm speaking to you, I'm realizing it's like that attitude of doing as much as you can. It's a weird trap because it's almost like that's what got us here, right? It's like that's what got us here, but once you get here, you realize, okay, I still need to pull it back. And in some way, you're being taught that balance. So this is the first time I'm about to say this in public. This is my own little quote. But so there's this quote that getting an education at MIT is like drinking water from a fire hose, right? And I was speaking to Jean and I was telling him how listen, they told us that we're here drinking water from a fire hose. How could we expect we're going to drink all the water, right? It's like water is spilling, right? You're trying to get as much as you can. But you're really navigating and trying to learn that balance, right? How much can I do? But unless you try to do more stuff, you don't know how much you can do.
And I think it's like, at the beginning of this conversation, we're talking about how in your final years of high school, you had to be like, okay, I like basketball. I'm going to pause for a bit and I'm going to explore, right? Definitely. Is that kind of attitude. That's not to say you said, I'm not going to play basketball anymore. I'm going to focus on these things. You recognize you can be a basketball player, you can, be a graphic designer, you can be doing different things. But at times you need that balance and you need to know, what do I prioritize in this moment? Yes. And that's like a really important aspect. And that's 100%. Something that being here, I'm learning, right? I can be doing all the things that I like at the same time.
Yes.
But then I know, throughout my lifetime, these things I can do and I don't need to, minimize. Yes. You get what I mean?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
No, that was an awesome answer. To really speak about now, obviously, we're at MIT. Number one school in the world, 12 years in running now, right? Yeah. How...
Some Princeton people might actually fight you on that one, but it's okay. Continue. I'm just saying I've met them.
That's fair. That's fair. We'll talk to them when they come.
Yeah.
Jill is at Princeton. Right? Yeah. No, Jill, you're coming. We're gonna talk to you soon. Okay, what I'm really trying to say is, in this high pressure environment, what do you think it takes to stay afloat? At least in your experience, right? Everyone has different coping. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's some of these things that might seem very general, but that I think sometimes are actually really difficult to do depending on what kind of person you are.
100%.
I think number one, building community is important. It could be community, in whatever things you're interested in, building a community there. Could be, for me, building a community within the African Students Association, which essentially led me to have many of my friends I met through that, right?
That's awesome.
Building community with professors, building community with teaching teams.
How does one do that? It's the professors and teaching teams, because I think that might be less obvious. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know if I have an answer to that. For me, in some of my classes, it's been harder to do Because some of them are quite large. In the smaller ones, sometimes it's hard to do still, but like it's always been, for me, I think naturally in the classes where I'm most invested and I really like the content of the class, naturally I tend to approach the professor like frequently.
Cool.
I tend to, talk to them, like going in depth with the class material, but also generally just about the things on my mind, the things I want to do in that space. And, those are like actually meaningful conversations for professors because they're coming in to interact with us, to teach us and to also learn from us.
I'm with you.
Right? So I would say just like sending out an email, approaching a professor, like it doesn't always work depending on like,
Fair.
The size and like
Of the
like
class,
I've said, but yeah.
The gist of it is you just have to make the effort.
You have to make the effort, and it's like something that MIT says a lot, and it's not exactly applicable here, but when you need help, ask for help, right? Because a lot of times help is there, but no one is gonna come and knock on your door and say, "Hey, do you need help?" You have to like actually unlock the door, open it, and you have to be willing to talk about it.
That's good.
So yeah.
That's good. No, awesome. So, with that, we're going to take a water break. Then, a lot of fun. In my mind, it was a game. It's not really a game, but it's a fun little segment that we'll do. But yeah, I got my little beverage. I'll take a quick sip. Now, so for this segment, are you familiar with MIT Confessions?
Yes.
Do you read them?
I read them.
Are you like a religious?
Like right now, I'm not.
Like when they show
right
up?
now, I'm not up to date, but I used to be religious.
Oh yeah.
Like yeah.
They're interesting.
They are quite interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like I'm having a bad day and they make me laugh.
Right.
Sometimes they're actually pretty sad, but they're still pretty good.
Okay, no, yeah, that's a good summary, honestly. In terms of being up to date, it turns out like during this IAP time, no one uses it.
Yeah, no one's confessing.
There's nothing like recent. The whole idea of the segment, I pick. Eventually, it's gonna be 3 random. This time, I kind of picked the best ones from the top. I've got 3 here, so I'm gonna read them. Might give an opinion, but I'm mainly just curious on your thoughts about them, right?
Yeah.
So, confession number 70,963.
That's a big number.
Right. Shout out Jacob Zuma. But yes, attending lectures in study rooms like 32123 for more than 10 minutes knocks me out no matter how much sleep I would get the night before. I conducted some potentially biased studies, and it appears to be caused by the combination of weird starlight plus my super bad astigmatism, I guess, with his eyesight, their eyesight, and an odd echoing sound that happens nonstop. Perhaps, the pores in the walls and stuff.
Yeah.
And then TLDR, I love being core 6 from a senior, smiley face. What are your thoughts? I guess, honestly, the main thought here, sleeping in class.
I'm one of those people who's not going to give you a fun answer.
No, that's valid.
And that's because it's not even that I won't be feeling sleepy.
Yes.
I don't know why. I just cannot fall asleep in class. So I'm one of those people who I am putting in all my mental energy to stay awake.
Okay.
And
so you've never fallen asleep?
I've never fallen asleep, but the worst that has happened is like me dozing off like maybe 3 times.
Right?
I catch myself and then that's it. But it's like I try my best to hold back, but then I'm actually not concentrating because I'm focusing so much on being awake that I'm not getting anything.
It's hard.
Hard.
No, that's valid. Yeah, for me, it's very similar. It's like I'll try not to fall asleep because it's like, you can't fall asleep at class.
Yeah.
But it's like sometimes... No, that's very valid. Someone replied, OMG, it's 32123, my favorite room in the whole entire institute. Valid. Oh, shout out to my vlog. That's the room I took the midterm in. But yes, if you haven't seen the vlog, definitely take a look at the vlog. Yes. The next one, confession number 70,962. I think I failed my first class today. It's entirely my fault. I've been missing recitation all semester and several lectures. It's like I've spent so long working for this thing, and now in the final stretch, senior year, when I should be taking a victory lap, I'm burning out harder than ever before. Do I even want this anymore? That's a deep one.
That's a deep one. It started out light, but...
Right?
But
I wouldn't say light. It started off like, okay, maybe you failed, right? It's it's the first time failing as well, right? It's like, okay, a lot of people have been there.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, they're a senior.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We're not seniors. We've not been in that position yet. But like, just thoughts.
Thoughts on what?
Oh, okay. I got to be more specific, huh? Okay, so there's the missing recitation part.
Because there's like a lot of things. There's
that's
There's my
true.
thoughts on like failing classes. There's my thoughts on like recitation.
So reading this confession, right? I think the biggest thing is like, I think they acknowledge that they know why they failed. So that's not necessarily a problem. It's more so the burnout, right? Like it's their senior year, tiredness,
Okay. So if it's burnout, the reason why I was asking you to be more specific is because
There
I
is
can
a lot,
relate
no.
to like everything in this confession. Like I'm not
you're saying you can relate to
I can relate
yes.
to everything. I'm not a senior, but trust me, I can relate. But burnout is real. That's what I'll say. I definitely experienced it in my sophomore year.
Okay. Fall, spring.
Do I remember? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Generally, sophomore year is just that year,
It's
right?
a very blurry
Cool.
time of my life.
Cool.
And like part of it is like I had an injury, right? So like I didn't really have my range of motion in one of my legs, so it was like really painful and like
it just makes going through life like slightly more difficult.
exactly.
Right?
I couldn't do any of the exercises that I like. I couldn't. That's one of my like de-stressing mechanisms. I couldn't do that. I couldn't really like walk fast enough. All sorts of things. But then there's also the aspect of my classes were just like not all of my classes, but like particularly my computer science classes were not going that great either, right?
Yes.
And then there's this part of me that knew that like I want to leave this major. I'm not happy. But there's this part of me that's like I have to stay. Maybe I owe it to people. Maybe I owe it to myself to like prove to myself that I can go through it. And so there was just a lot on my mind, and then a lot of stuff happening physically as well. That I was just like burnt out. And there was a period where like my room was a mess. I was not cleaning my room. I was like sometimes
just the
not
mental
going
space you're
to
in.
class. Exactly. Like if I go to class, I come back, I'm on my bed and that's all I'm doing. I don't have the desire to do anything. I'm just in that.
It's so funny. I think I don't know someone who's not gone through that. Or at least it's always I always find this weird trade-off of like the people who maybe seem or say they've not gone through that, you'll struggle somewhere else. Right? Yeah. So I understand for sure.
So like burnout is like that, and it's always important to be honest with oneself. I think like in the confession, sometimes why you failed. Those things are important, like reanalyzing those things and like seeing what's happening, right? Then it's also like important, like I said, to ask for help. So for me, it was community. I didn't even ask for help myself. Like,
but because you had the community around, that's a good highlight actually, right? It's like having community is not. It's like it's awesome to have friends, but it's also in the times where you're not gonna ask for help yourself. Your people will see that.
Exactly. I literally had someone call mental health services for me,
that's
and
sweet.
I think that's just like the beauty of having that kind of community, right? It's not like people are also busy, also doing their own stuff. It's not all the time that they might be able to do this, but they'll still like somehow be supportive.
Yes.
And it's important also to like, when you can, ask for help yourself.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. That's good insight for myself as well, right? I think so. I watch Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. So he's phenomenal, like just podcast host, entrepreneur. And the biggest thing that he said, which also like inspired me, the reason he started his podcast was so that he could learn from all these people, right? And it's like, that's really the biggest benefit I'm getting. It's like I get to hear a lot of more of like not only your experience, but even just how you're making it through all of this stuff. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah.
Finally, third one, confession number 70,960. Honestly, I enjoyed this semester a lot. Even though so much crazy SHI happened in the middle of it that really effed with my mental health. And classes gave me panic attacks. And just a massive appreciation of my major. Oh, wait. You see, now a brother can't read. Even though so much crazy stuff happened in the middle that really effed with my mental health, and classes gave me panic attacks, and just a massive onslaught of negative experiences. I've gained an appreciation of my major that I would not have imagined. Basically, I declared my major on effectively a vibe, and it's manifested itself in my eager participation in lecture, in studying with friends, in finally finishing exams this week. I am but halfway through my time here, but I think I have truly found glimpses of paradise. Here's what I understood. Let me just relay that because I know the way I read that was probably so unclear. This person is telling us that they basically had an intense semester just in terms of like life events, right? Like it was a tough time. They experienced stuff they didn't anticipate experiencing, right? Just crazy experiences. But they enjoyed it a lot because they've now gained an appreciation for their major, right? They're kind of like settling in. I think they say halfway through, so probably sophomore year, right?
Yeah.
They were basically saying in their time studying with friends, back to the community that you mentioned, they think they found paradise at MIT. I don't know if I have a specific question about this, but I'm also just curious if you have thoughts on this idea of like, even through the pain, the pleasure of MIT.
I think for me, like the highlight of like at least what I heard in that confession was the essence of having peace in this chaotic place. It's beautiful
having
chaos.
Peace in the
chaotic
place,
in this
right?
chaotic place like MIT. It's beautiful chaos, a lot of things happening. But I think that's what I heard from this, right? I think for me, there was a time when like I was pretty much kind of losing myself. That like I feel naturally that I'm a giver. I like to be there for my friends. I like to be there for my community. But I think there was a time that it was difficult for me to do that kind of thing for myself. Difficult for me to be there for myself. Difficult for me to like ask for help, as I was saying, those kinds of things. But like this past semester that we just like finished, like honestly, I was so at peace. I was so happy.
I'm glad.
Classes were not classing. Stuff was happening.
But you were at peace.
Yeah. Like, I mean, at least like the second half of it. There was a point when like I regained that peace that I kind of had lost.
I'm glad.
And for me, like obviously it's different for people, but for me, I think it just came in me sitting down and like really reflecting and thinking. You know, there's a lot of times when you have imposter syndrome, you're thinking, oh, do I really deserve to be in this place? All sorts of things. And for me, like from a faith aspect, I'm thinking, if God placed me in this place that I am at this time in my life, in the same way that I believe maybe not getting that scholarship was actually a good thing for me, I'm in the right place. I need to first acknowledge that, you know, to myself. And I think once I started thinking about that, once I started remembering that on a daily basis, things started to like get better because now I'm like, okay, things are hard, but I know I'm in the right place and I'm going to try and do the best that I can do.
100%.
And I'm going to be happy in this place that I'm in because I was happy when I got here and I want to continuously be happy.
Right. It's the reframing and giving yourself perspective that this is my dream, right?
Exactly.
It's always a fun thought to be like, everyone wants to dream, right? Of this and that.
Yeah.
But it's like, then there's the reality of what it takes to get there. Yeah, I think just encouraging people to just go through it, right? It's your dream. Damn, this has been awesome. 2 last things. So you can start thinking about a question you'll leave for our next guest. But obviously, we've spoken about where you've come from, a little bit about your experience here at MIT. And so naturally, it would be great to hear a little bit more about some of your aspirations as well and just what's next.
I think my biggest aspiration right now is to just like keep on discovering things that I like.
Awesome.
Because even in junior year, you would think, okay, I'm almost done with college. I know what I want. You know, I know what I like. Then I take a class and I realize, oh, I like public policy. I never knew that.
Okay.
You know, all these things come up at different times. It could be through a club. It could be through class. And right now, I think what I aspire to do is just like continue to discover.
To learn more stuff.
And to allow myself to be courageous enough to like get into those spaces. Like, you know, it might be something unfamiliar, something I've just discovered now, but like I have time. And I guess that's what I'm thinking to do. But like outside of that, in general, I'm interested in equity.
Cool.
So just like the bridge between technology and society, knowing that people have equitable access to those kinds of things, it doesn't even need to be technology. I'm really passionate about like
equity across the
period
board,
poverty, like all sorts of things. Just thinking about like sustainable systems for, you know, every single person to be able to access the things that they need. That's what I like.
Cool.
And so wherever I go, in whatever space I find myself, I still want to be thinking about these things, like at least as they apply to that context.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Awesome. No, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wishing you all the best on that journey, of course. Once again, I can't express how much I appreciate you being the very first guest on Nesu Connect. I am very excited for the journey. I'd love to see you back, actually.
Yeah.
So much to talk about, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we got a little bit of a gift. Let's see. I think.
Oh, really?
We do.
This is getting fun.
Just a little thank you. For just a thank you note. It's so funny.
Thank you. This one.
The gift card had a message in it already. Look, it's my first time doing this. It's a bar mitzvah gift card. But I just like, wrote a little message in there as well. Just token of appreciation.
That's so funny. But it's memorable.
Iteration one. It's iteration one.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Thanks.
Yes, on that note, wishing you the best with the rest of the day. Before you leave, what is the question you'd like to leave for our next guest?
That's so hard. You should have told me beforehand. but let me...
It's okay. Take your time.
Let me think about it.
There's no rush. Prompts would be stuff you think would be valuable for the audience to hear. The beauty of it is literally that fact that you don't know who the next guest is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like coming up with
I guess I'm just curious to know, like, what if they could pick only one thing?
Okay.
What's one thing they think has, like, really shaped perhaps, like, the way they approach MIT or, like, their experiences here, like, to date?
Okay.
What's, you know, what has shaped that like, view that they have or that the attitude they have when they're approaching their schoolwork or, like, the numerous things that they're doing on campus.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vivian.
You're
Hope
welcome.
you have a good day, and we'll see you guys soon.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.